What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to build the best RX 9070 gaming PC that you can assemble right now. A system that's going to be perfect for high frame rate 1440p gaming and give you options when it comes to that 4K resolution in a few select titles too. A build that looks to optimize for value in and amongst some crazy pricing on PC parts right now. More on that a little later. Now, I'll be walking you guys through all the parts in this build, why I've selected the components I have, and some alternatives you might want to consider before looking at the build process and performance a little later, in everything from Battlefield 6 and Black Ops 7 to Arc Raiders and Apex Legends. Let's do this. Corsair Custom Labs is here and supports a wide range of products and components, now including PC memory. Simply choose your desired Vengeance RGB configuration of speed and capacity and pick from one of the amazing custom designs. Whether you're into sci-fi or this amazing variation of Cherry Blossom, there's a myriad of options to pick from. You can match your peripherals with the same Custom Labs design too for a fully unified gaming setup, and even configure multiple product designs at once with live renders. Learn more about Corsair Custom Labs and check it out for yourself at the first link in the description below. Now, I'm going to start today's video by talking about the CPU and GPU combo, as I feel like that's always the best place to start with a build, and it's where you guys should be starting if you're looking to assemble a system and pick out the parts for it. Now, I've gone all AMD, which is absolutely the best option at the price point today, with an RX 9070 and a Ryzen 5 9600X. I'll kick off with the CPU as that's nice and easy. 6 cores, 12 threads, and it's the best value chip that you can currently buy for in and around that $200 or pound price point. It's got fast clock speeds, good single-threaded performance. It lives on AMD's AM5 platform, which means you can upgrade all the way through to a Ryzen 9 9950X3D on the same CPU socket. And we're also hopeful that AMD's next-gen 10,000, whatever they call it, next Ryzen generation that we're expecting to land some point in 2026 will also use that same socket. So your motherboards will remain compatible with any required BIOS updates. In terms of the GPU, I've picked up the RX 9070. This consistently ranks as one of the best options in and around this price point. Now, it's a trimmed down 9070 XT. It's a fair bit less powerful than the 9070 XT, but in current market conditions will cost you quite a lot less money. It shares lots of the same really great attributes. It's got great rasterization performance, AMD's ray tracing is getting better every day, and AMD's FSR tech is catching up with NVIDIA's DLSS. It's not there yet, but it's not far off. 16 gigs of VRAM is also fantastic on this GPU and represents 4 gigabytes more than what you'll find on the RTX 5070, which is this card's closest competitor. Now, I think as to whether you should go for the 9070 or 5070, the cards are quite close. When the 9070 first launched, it made more sense based on price, but we've seen, particularly here in the UK, the price of the 5070 drop considerably. So you may want to consider that, and you can see in our performance benchmarks how closely these cards align. Now, there are rumours of big price increases to GPUs coming next year, and the reason is all to do with this stuff. And this stuff, memory. Now, I'm going to talk about memory pricing in a minute because it's really pertinent and really important to the video today. But basically, this whole AI boom that's happening, you know, with ChatGPT and everything else, is consuming a lot of memory capacity. And what that has led to is DDR5 memory initially going up in price a lot, SSD memory also starting to rise, and the rumor is that this will be passed on to GPUs. The technical reasoning is because it's the same wafer that actually gets divided up and used in graphics memory as what you'll find in your system memory. So there's more of a lag on GPUs, but the current pricing is good, and I actually think it won't be getting any better than where it is now. Now then, with that out the way, let's talk about memory a little bit for today's build. We'll start off with the easy one, which is the SSD. SSD pricing is currently okay. I've picked up this MP44L from Teamgroup. Now, this particular drive here is a 1TB drive. I think enough for the build today. If you want to go bigger, absolutely do so. The main one with storage is to pick up a Gen 4 drive that offers good speeds and good reviews. You've got loads of options out there, and honestly, pretty much all of them will be fine. For DDR5 memory, for desktop memory, this is where things get a lot harder. You're going to need for this particular build some low profile memory. So I've picked up the T-Force Vulcan DDR5, but RAM prices right now are frankly ludicrous. I've never ever seen anything like it in my nearly 10 years of building PCs here on YouTube, and it's just not a good situation. There's no easy way to put it. The good news is that these things can't last forever, right? They never last forever, but we seem to be in it for the long run. My recommendation is that if you've already got a system with some DDR5 memory, even if it's only 16 gigs, even if the speed and latency is not very good, I would just keep that for now, and once prices stabilize, upgrade later. If you've not got memory, try your best to shop around, try and shop in store if you can, and honestly, there's not much more advice I can give you. But what I would say is I wouldn't wait to assemble the whole build until memory prices fall, because by that point, we could be in a world of trouble with GPUs, and SSDs might also have gone up in price significantly. Now then, with all the negatives out the way, let's talk about some positive stuff. For the motherboard, I've picked up this, which is the Gigabyte B850 Eagle Wi-Fi 6E. This is one of my favorite B850 motherboards. It's got Gen 5 PCI support, it's got 4 RAM DIMMs and dual channel, it's got USB-C, it's got 2.5 gig Ethernet. We use this board in loads of pre-built gaming PCs that we sell over on GeekaPC.com. GeekaPC is our UK pre-building company, and I want to say a big thank you to you all for your amazing support on that this year. If you want to build yourself, absolutely do so, but I know some of you don't want to build it yourself, and if you don't want to and you're in the UK, check out the link below, and we're hoping to expand into more countries in the future. The main thing with this board is it's great value, it's epically reliable. Yeah, as I say, we've probably built with more than 100 of these boards this year and not really had any problems, which is great. Let me talk about the case next, because I'm actually pretty excited for this one. Now, this comes in from a brand called Sama, who you might have heard of when you scroll through Newegg, as they're actually one of the best-selling brands when it comes to great value PC cases. So when they offered to send out this for me to have a look at, with a curved glass panel on the front and a whopping 7 included ARGB fans, I said, yes, absolutely. Now, this is the V60 in black, and it's, the best way I can describe it is it's a cross between some of those higher end curved tempered glass fish tank PC cases and some of the more budget options on the market. And my first impressions are that they seem to have done a pretty good job. Inside the case, you'll find 3 120mm reverse blade fans at the bottom, 3 on the side, and a standard fan and exhaust. That's going to save you a lot of money over having to buy fans yourself. And then at the rear of the case, you'll find all the front panel cables neatly cable managed. And then there's this little cover down the bottom here, which you can mount drives on. Would be nice if this was toolless, but taking it out is not a huge issue. And once that's removed, you'll actually see all of the fan cables wired down into an included fan and ARGB hub that does actually have an extra connector, an extra 2 sets of connectors. So you can add 2 more fans on here without any problems, which is great. And this is powered by what looks to be a single SATA power connection, and then you can also plug it up to a fan header for motherboard fan control and an ARGB header if you want to sync the lighting with your motherboard, rather than the LED button on the top of the case. And you do get dedicated LED and reset, which is great. I also love the fact, by the way, too, that this front panel is curved on not 1 but 2 sides. So this is clear, but it's still glass on this side and still curved, which I think looks good. Reverse connect motherboard support is also good here, as is GPU clearance, and for a dual chamber case, it's pretty compact, which I do quite like. For cooling as well, I've also picked up this, which is the Sama A60. I had some great reviews on Amazon and fit the bill really nicely for what I wanted. I didn't want to go for an all-in-one in this build. I thought that was a bit frivolous and probably didn't need to spend that much money. However, I still wanted something that was going to be cool and quiet. And with this all black aesthetic, black fans, black top plate, I think in the build, that's going to look really rather nice. CPU is the first thing I'm going to install. And thinking about it, the Ryzen 5 9000 lineup is really like the 3rd CPU generation in a row where AMD have just totally crushed the mid-range of the market. Memory, I'm going to use the 2nd and 4th DIMM slots. As mentioned earlier, if you're going for the cooler I've picked, or any large dual tower air cooler, you will need to go ahead and pick yourself up some low profile memory, as that is otherwise going to cause problems with the CPU cooler. Once the CPU and the memory are in, I'm then going to go ahead and pop the SSD in. Just lift up the socket cover, or the SSD heatsink, sorry. Hang on a minute. I've got an MP44L that I want to install in the motherboard, and there's an MP44L already in the motherboard. I've obviously used this motherboard before and forgot to take the SSD out. However, this is the 2 terabyte. I want to install the 1 terabyte. So I'm going to go ahead and slide that in, push that down, and then return our M.2 heatsink back into place. Next up, it's time for the CPU cooler, and straight off the bat, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take off the middle fan, as that's going to get in the way when it comes to actually screwing the cooler down. What we're going to do is we're going to sort of rest the CPU on. Have we got our memory clearance okay? Yes, we have. You can see there's a small gap between the memory and the fan. There's actually a fair bit of clearance there, so that's good. Now, what we need to do is remove the stock plastic brackets. Now, they're already off in this system, but I'll put a shot on screen now of what they look like. And what we need to do is then take those off, replace those screws with some male-to-male screws, and then secure on top of that the 2 silver mounting plates that the cooler will secure into. This particular page kind of sums it up really, really nicely in the manual and is pretty clear and easy to understand. Now those brackets are in, you can see we've got 2 posts here that stick out. That is what the cooler is going to secure down to with its integrated spring tension screws. So go ahead and get that in, and then you can return that middle fan back into place as well at this stage. Nice and simple. Now, the next stage of the build is to move the motherboard into the case, and we're nearly good to go here. I can see straight off the bat we've got 6 standoffs installed down the middle, but weirdly we need to add 3 along the right-hand edge. So I'm going to go ahead and screw those down. They do come included in the case accessory box before then lining the motherboard up and screwing it in, once again with the screws that come included in the little brown box that comes in the back of the chassis. Nice, we are getting there. Now the next stage of the build, I think, is going to be to spin the case around to the back and to install the power supply. Now Sammer did kindly send me this, which is their P1000 in black, but I'm going to actually link below the 750 and the 850 watt versions instead, as this is very overkill for what we actually need. With that being said, again, I was quite surprised and impressed on Amazon when I saw not only some of the reviews of these units, but some of the prices too, and I'll leave that info in the description below. Now, the power supply ticks all of the boxes that you would expect from a modern day PSU. Now that's because not only is it 80 plus platinum certified with a 10-year warranty, but it's ATX 3.1 compatible and gives you that 12 volt 2x6 high power connector natively, which is great. To have platinum power supply at this price is really, really impressive and shows you the kind of value that's on offer. I'm going to go ahead and connect up power cables for the CPU, the GPU in today's build, the SATA power for the hub at the bottom and the CPU, get those all into the PSU interface, and then screw this in to the back of the case. And once those power cables and the front panel cables are connected as well, the final thing to do is move on to the GPU. And I'm quite excited about this because I haven't built with the 9070 in a while. I've done loads of builds with the 9070 XT, but not the 9070. Now then, what have we got? Yes, this Gigabyte card's really nice. It is a triple fan card, but it's a pretty compact triple fan design and is one of the more kind of MSRP oriented SKUs, aka you can often find it for one of the lower prices compared to other 9070 XTs. Now, a quick sort of cursory check, is it going to fit? Yes, it is, absolutely no problems. And in terms of which PCI lanes it's going to use, it actually uses the top 2. It's then a simple case of sliding the graphics card in. There we are, getting everything nicely aligned. Good stuff, and applying a little bit of pressure. The same screws that you take the PCI lanes out with can be used to secure the PCI lanes back in. So that's going to go in nice and simple. Remember the little extra cover for good measure. And then all that's left is to add some GPU power to the mix. And then I should be able to power this build up and see how it looks. So a quick plug-in with our kettle lead to the back of the power supply. The only front panel cables I haven't done yet are the front panel JFP1, as they're a little bit fiddly in this case. So I'm going to jump the build manually with my screwdriver. Oh yes, look at that. And those bottom fans in there really set that off, and that curved tempered glass is gorgeous. So yeah, give me a few minutes to take a look at performance, but first get that cable management done and see how good this thing looks when it's all powered up. Nice. I'm super happy with how this build turned out in the end. I think those integrated 7A RGB fans look great. The CPU cooler is a little dark at the top of the build, but looks stealthy and pretty sleek. And the 9070 here should provide great gaming performance. But to really find out, let's dive into the benchmarks. Now, to test this build, I've picked up this monitor from Yamaha. It's the GB3271QSU, and it's a vivid IPS panel with a 1 millisecond response time, 180 Hz refresh rate, but crucially, the 1440p resolution I need to test this system at both 1440 but also 1080p. I'll leave a link to this down below. It's part of Yamaha's fairly entry-level Red Eagle monitor lineup, and you can check that out, as I say, in the description. Now, in terms of the gameplay results that this build achieved, I was impressed across the board, and perhaps not surprised by how well the 9070 holds up. On your screen now is a summary of all the results we gathered in the latest and most popular titles, predominantly at that 1440p resolution. Now, taking a closer look into a couple of these, and why not start with Arc Raiders, the newest title on the list today. Here at 1440p high, Arc Raiders achieves an average of 161 frames per second. The 1% and 0.1% lows were good too, with 108 and 85 frames per second respectively, and this is at that 1440p resolution. Imagine the kind of frame rates you could get if you drop down to 1080p. Moving through into Battlefield 6, again testing at 1440p high settings, and I'm pleased to report that the gameplay not only looked great and was really smooth, but delivered really strong gaming performance too. With an average frame rate of 142 frames per second, and once again strong 1 and 0.1% lows, it held up really well on this system. And don't let the fact that 9070 is quite a bit less powerful than its XT variant put you off, clearly sufficient in this title. In Call of Duty's Black Ops 7, results were again very good. 1440p high settings saw a really nice average of 167 frames per second, and as you can see, the gameplay looks really rather nice. Interestingly here, VRAM's pretty high, nearly 14 gigabytes at parts, showing the VRAM advantage of the RX 9070. Move through to Cyberpunk at 1440p high, and here I decided to test at a few different configurations, including with and without FSR and ray tracing. Now starting off at 1440p high rasterization, that's no RT, no FSR, nothing like that, and the average frame rate clocked in at around about 130 FPS on average. Go ahead and tune FSR on, that's AMD's equivalent to NVIDIA DLSS, and set it to the quality, aka the least aggressive preset, and frame rate here rose to 172 frames per second, while moving through and turning ray tracing on did drop the frame rate significantly, but did help boost the visuals, 84 frames per second on average, with that combination of ray tracing, FSR, and of course 1440p high in the other settings. Finally, in Marvel's Rivals at 1440p high, frame rates were once again good. That's the story of this build. Great performance at a, yes, not cheap price point, but a reasonable one, and here the frame rate exceeded that 140 FPS mark, with an average of 140.1 frames per second. This is a system then that stacked up really well, and one that was not only easy to put together, provides good upgrade paths with its AM5 platform, and looks pretty good inside of a case from Sama that I was a little apprehensive about, but actually quite impressed with, especially for the price. I'll leave latest pricing and availability for all the parts mentioned today in the description below. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.